Hello, film fans. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. My name is Martin Harries, your host. I'm a filmmaker on occasion, but mainly can't stop yapping about movies. On this podcast, every episode I pick a topic from a film that's coming out at the cinema or on streaming. I pick a favourite film from that topic and battle it out against a guest to decide which film will become the greatest film of all time. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Please enjoy part 1. Hello, Podderoonies or Podsters if you prefer. We are back again for another episode of the Film vs. Film podcast. And as Joker Folie Deux, I think that's how you pronounce it, is out in the cinemas, we are talking R-rated comic book films 2, the sequel, as we have done one in the past, where that was V for Vendetta versus Logan. So that was a very good one. And of course, I am joined by a returning guest, basically someone who I trust and is very reliable and helping me out for this one because I didn't get it booked. Leigh from Lights, Camera, Rant. How are you, sir? And thank you.
I'm doing good, man. And I'm always happy to help out anytime. Your time and place, I'm always going to put my hand up because it's always a great time with you. Especially, I was very excited about this one.
Yes. Some really interesting films we're going to talk about for sure. There's, it's really interesting with R-rated comic book films because they are becoming more popular now, which is great to see because obviously, certainly with the ones that we chose, they were kind of very rare films, like kind of very low budget, both of the, well, respectively low budget compared to what we have now and at the time, and they were certainly risks. Whereas now I think, studios are more open to doing R-rated movies in the comic book genre. So which is cool to see.
If Deadpool and Wolverine's not something to show you bank on how much money they made.
Well, and Joker as well.
Yeah, that's true. Be interesting to know if Joker 2 will make the same amount of money.
Yeah, I don't think so. But we'll see. So, Leigh, tell us about your podcast and where can we find you, sir? If people don't already know.
My podcast is called Lights, Camera, Rant. You can find us everywhere you get your podcasts. Spotify, YouTube, Apple, Amazon, everywhere. We go live every Sunday. We talk about the latest in pop culture news and we rant about the latest movies or TV shows. At the moment, it's Agatha and the Penguin.
Yes, I am very excited for the Penguin, especially. I loved the Batman, Matt Reeves' film from a few years ago now. Apparently the script is finished for part 2.
Finally.
I'm okay with that because I'm just like, it means they're taking their time to get it right. But yeah, the recent reviews for the Penguin pilot, the first episode, or however you want to call it, there's been debate recently on a podcast I've been listening to about whether people still call first episodes of series or seasons a pilot. But the first episode has got like amazing reviews. Some people calling it a masterpiece. I'm just like, okay, this is awesome.
No, I completely agree with all the reviews we're getting so far. That first episode definitely sets everything up. And I saw the other day it reached 5.6 million views in its first 4 days.
Oh, wow.
From that. So it definitely smashed Agatha altogether.
Yeah.
And I'm very much like you. I think regardless of it being Penguin and not Penguin, I'm just so eager to dive back into this Matt Reeves universe and see what's happened.
Yeah, definitely. It'll be interesting, obviously, to see like how this kind of ties into part 2 or whether this is going to be more of just like a standalone TV show, as in like not part of the part 2 storyline. But it'll be interesting to see. Agatha all along, I'm like I think the reviews have been fairly mixed, which is disappointing, but I feel like that's kind of commonplace now with the Disney Plus TV shows. And I certainly was excited about it because I kind of do like my witchy horror-y stuff anyway. So, but it sounds like they are kind of playing it a bit safe. I don't know. I haven't seen it yet, but I will still watch it. But
There was a couple of moments, probably more so in episode 2 than was episode 1. There was a couple of horror moments, so I was like, oh shit, all right, they're going into that, but it's definitely a mix between WandaVision and horror. They're definitely playing that both sides. And I do hope it does. I do hope it does get better as the episodes come out. But I think regardless of, even if Agatha does really well, I feel like Penguin's going to take the cake.
Oh yeah,
between battling the two shows at the moment.
Anyway, getting off track as always.
2 hours later.
Joker, Folie, Deux. What do you make of this one then? Yeah, I'm not that excited about it, but it's interesting that it's more of a musical, apparently, even though they are strictly not marketing it as a musical.
Not at all.
Which is really interesting, because apparently there is a lot of songs in it, but not a musical. Can't call it a musical, though.
No, because you'll scare people off.
Yeah.
And I just saw today, to add in this whole musical thing, is that Lady Gaga will also be dropping an album inspired by the movie altogether.
Really? What, a whole separate album, or just...
Yeah, called Harley Quinn or something, coming out with a whole set list. I was like, yeah, this is definitely not a musical. Definitely not.
Yeah, I mean, probably listeners probably know my thoughts on the first one. I just don't like the first one whatsoever, to be honest. I've never felt so miserable coming out of a cinema before.
Have you watched The Room?
No.
I would love for you to watch The Room and come back to me and what your review of that would be.
All right.
You would...
Ranting and raving, I suppose.
Yeah, ranting and raving and just giant, what the did I just watch?
Yeah. But, I mean, what I didn't like about the first film is the fact that, firstly, the iconography is just all wrong. Why does he look like an actual clown, which is just very frustrating? Because the Joker, yes, there's clown elements, but like he shouldn't feel like a clown. He should feel threatening. And the only like Joker iconography there is just the green hair. That's it. And the fact that he has a name already, that you know a lot of his backstory. I know a lot of the first film is based on Alan Moore's The Killing Joke, where you see him as a stand-up comedian, and then there's like a current story with him and Batman.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mix.
But there's nothing, but what's great about that, it's quite short, but what's great about that comic book is that there's nothing in between. There's literally all the stand-up stuff and his life going miserable, and then the concurrent story, the future story, present story with Batman and Joker. But there's nothing in between. You don't see the bridge, the progression of how he becomes the Joker. That's what makes it really interesting. It makes you fill in the gaps yourself, whereas it's just filling in all the gaps, which is very annoying. And the most frustrating thing is you're supposed to feel like extremely sympathetic towards this guy, and I'm just like, no, what? This is supposed to be like a supervillain, like a very chaotic, but he's a criminal mastermind, and he's just a pathetic character in my opinion, and it's just very annoying. And also the fact that his laugh is a condition just ramps up this sympathetic thing towards Arthur Fleck, and again it's just not threatening at all. I just don't understand this whole you're supposed to feel sorry for this guy murdering people. There's a few good scenes in here, and the one like complaint that the first film had before it even came out was the violence. I'm like, the violence was like the best parts for me.
Yeah.
It wasn't even that violent. So
no, it's limited to how much violence there is.
Yeah, and it's just very pretentious at times. And like, there's a moment where he just gets in a fridge, just for no reason, just gets in his own fridge. I'm like, oh, okay.
Like,
he's in there.
Jones thing.
Just trying to find the old corned beef right at the back. I don't know.
Yeah. I know I left it in here somewhere. I'll have to get in it, then get out. Yeah, the Joker, the first one is very mixed. I find amongst podcasters like ourselves, it's very much you like it or you don't. There's no real grey area with that film, because if you grow up on the comics and everything, you're more leaning to, I would have preferred to have a Killing Joke origin story movie done, then I would prefer this. But I find people who are less know about the comics love the movie, really like the movie. And I've said ever since I reviewed it all the way back, I was like, this doesn't need a sequel. And what are we getting?
Folie Deux.
And they're taking the Sony route as well. Here's a villain, but you don't need the hero. What do you mean you need the hero? You don't need Spider-Man. You don't need Batman.
And that's half the problem, is that because there's so much kind of darkness and despair and just a depressing feeling throughout the whole of that first film, there's no like pushback against that with a Batman type figure. There's nothing there.
No.
Which is annoying. And also another frustrating thing, it just feels like Todd Phillips just wants to make his own like Martin Scorsese movie, like The King of Comedy or Taxi Driver, but just using like Joker as his platform so people go see it, which is for me quite cynical. And just funneling kind of a Scorsese type 70s story through a Joker character that has nothing to do with that kind of story anyway, which is kind of frustrating and cynical.
No, I can understand. Like, where's the second one even going to end? Like the thing is, with the first one ended with, okay, Joker's established. We see Batman. We see Bruce Wayne's parents die in the alley. I'm like, okay, you could do. That's enough. That was enough to go. Okay, when he does meet the Joker, he's a little bit older. He has time to crack. But now we're getting Harley Quinn in it, and it's like, okay, like I'm still not too sure what the actual villain or like what's.
I really like Lady Gaga. I think her look, her aesthetic, her costume, her makeup actually looks quite good. They're not doing too much with it. I really like Lady Gaga as an actor, a great singer, obviously. So, and I feel like with this film, I guess in some senses, I'll be intrigued to see it just with how they're going to use their big swings with like the music stuff, how all that is going to work. Because I feel like it's going to feel not quite different, but just it's going to have a little bit of a different edge to it, and hopefully they keep the violent side of it, because that was obviously my favorite part of the first film. But
they have to. They have to keep it to that. You can't just have it would be slightly boring if it didn't.
Yeah,
but Todd Phillips has said that there was no third one. This is it.
All right.
So I'm glad. Yeah, move on. Go make Hangover 4.
Do we have to? Yeah. Hopefully he means this is it for him as a director, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, Jesus. But no, look, it's funny because I was having this conversation with a friend just yesterday, and we were looking at all the movies that are coming out for the rest of the year, and I was like, usually I'm very, very much excited for a superhero film. I'm the first one to put my hand up and be like, yeah, let's go. But I'm like, you know what? I can almost push out of the way and be like, I'm looking at Gladiator right now. Gladiator is the next movie I'm excited for.
Definitely. And a new trailer has come out, and I'm specifically avoiding that. I just don't want to see it. I feel like it's going to spoil a lot, so I'm like, nah, not watching it.
It didn't, but it's more of an action trailer.
Right.
It's just pretty much action shots, majority of the whole thing. But I wouldn't actually watch it. Now I'm thinking about it. Probably showed it a little bit too much. But I did notice that they left out the rap music. I was like, I wonder if someone told you to take that out.
Yeah.
But and that's in November, and I can't wait for that.
Cool. So, R-rated comic book films then. What is your choice? You can go first.
Well, my first choice was a movie that I haven't seen in a long time, and is the original Punisher, a 2004 film. Now, before someone says, I know there's another Punisher film older with Dolph Lundgren, but this 2004 one with Thomas Jane, and I think I probably watched this probably about 15 years ago.
Right.
When I go in the whole phase of like, X-Men, Spider-Man, Daredevil, Punisher, And then dreaming, one day it'd be really great if they all go in the same movie.
Didn't happen.
Nope.
Were there any other R-rated comic book films in contention for you? Or?
Well, the other one was Logan. Logan. I was another one I thought of straight away, but I thought, no, because you don't recently. I didn't want to dive too much into that. And Blade was another one I thought off the top of my head when we were talking, because that's even older. Again, but I forgot how like the Punisher was just. This movie was just so straight up like action.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Have you seen it before?
No, I've not seen it before. Yeah, it's quite a ride. Very weird at times. Very weird, but
so 2004.
Yeah.
So the music, the dialogue.
Yeah. So what happens in The Punisher, Leigh?
So in The Punisher, we meet Frank Castle, who's an undercover FBI cop who, of course, does his last mission and he's off in retirement. Stop me if you've heard this before. And unfortunately, at a sting operation, the mob boss's son dies and he's out to kill him, which he doesn't kill him. Well, he does definitely try, but the boss kills his family, which just becomes a story of vengeance, or punishment, if you will, where Frank Castle becomes a Punisher and is on a hunt for John Travolta.
Excellent. So initial reactions for me.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm really curious.
I think saying I liked it a lot is a strong statement. I think there's definitely parts I really enjoyed. There's some parts where I was just like, what the fuck is going on? And there are parts where the dialogue is truly dreadful. But yeah, it's a fun ride. There's certainly scenes where it's a bit disappointing. But yeah, it's fun, you know. It's nothing special. You stick it on like on a Friday night, have a giggle. But yeah, tonally though, this film is all over the place. It really is.
I know. And that's the thing is, when I was watching it back, I was like, well, I don't know if I just time, but I was like, I remember this being a lot better. I was like a lot more excited when I watched this. So this is really cool. Now watching back, and I was a bit like, all right.
Not as good as I remember.
Yeah, no. But hey, I at least say that the CGI has held up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's much CG in it, which is a good thing. You know, no. They try and do as much as they can in camera. Yeah, I think a lot of the action stuff is really well done. To be fair, yeah,
that's the whole best part. I feel like this is someone who's like, I really like Die Hard. Now let's change it. Let's find a comic book character, and we don't need to fill any gaps. It just writes itself.
Yeah, stick him in a t-shirt with a skull on it. Job done.
Right. That's right, exactly right. Kill his family. Oh, I can see it now. Just writes itself.
Yeah. So directing then, the opening few scenes aren't very well directed in my opinion. Like the opening scene with the drug deal, we see Thomas Jane with bleached blonde hair speaking Russian, which was quite distracting. I was just thinking, why has he got a Russian accent? What the hell's going on? The drug deal is just very void of suspense. The cops and helicopters just seem to come in like they got the wrong cue. And they were like, oh shit, we just got to come in now. Okay. Yeah. It just felt very random. Then when Thomas Jane gets shot, I didn't think for one moment he was dead. Then the scene with John Travolta later, again, is very undramatic when they try and do the classic, I'm going to shoot this guy. Nope. And he just moves the gun towards someone else and shoots him. But I didn't even know who that guy was.
No.
I didn't think he even had a line yet. His lines are just pleading for his life. So that was kind of bizarre.
Yeah. And just one in the leg, one done. And same thing. I was like, I don't think I remember you popping up. You're just in the background for 2 seconds.
Yeah, that was weird. But the scene I quite liked was the massacre scene I just sound like a guy that just loves violence right
Wow,
now.
that's a clip right there.
Yeah.
That's a short. My favorite.
Yeah. I thought it was like really well done, like, and very brutal. I definitely felt the tension that these guys are all kind of, the fact that they're all dressed in black, fully loaded with guns, and they're approaching this beach house in Puerto Rico, and Frank's family are just having fun and they're completely defenseless. But I did find it funny when like Frank and his dad, played by Roy Schneider, go to a little hut that has his father's guns in a cabinet, and there seems to be shotguns all over the walls.
Yeah, all ready to go.
Yeah.
All ready to go.
But when the shooting starts, you don't know where exactly it's coming from, and you just see like splinters going everywhere. When the goons do arrive, they sometimes literally just walk up to people and just shoot them. It's so brutal.
Yeah.
I did like how like Frank gets going with the action when he just about finishes loading his shotgun and the guy opens the door and just blows him away, and you get that great like reverse angle shot of him just flying through the air. That was great.
That was good. Yeah, it's if anything, like between this, and the action set piece at the end as well, is that all the action and all the shots for the action scenes, I feel like is the best, 100% best part of this entire movie.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And it also teaches you that don't have a family reunion on a beach house with your entire family before you go anywhere.
Yeah.
Don't.
Make sure the bad guys that you try to arrest are dead or whatever, or completely locked up.
Yeah, and not coming back. Or you have a lovely wife being like, his family. Get his family. Not him.
Yeah, that was weird again.
Yeah, I was like, okay.
The last action scene with Frank Castle in his, Punisher bulletproof vest was a little disappointing to me. And I think they focus too much on like the explosions, and there's certainly a lot of explosions in that last scene.
Oh yeah.
There's only a few little pieces of good like gun action. Like I did like the little bit of like fast intercutting when Castle knifes a guy and then waits for someone to pull a champagne bottle out of an ice bucket, which has a grenade attached to it. Then again, there's another like Mexican standoff with John Travolta and Frank as he shoots him in the leg, I think. So many Western influences in this film. But you can't deny like the last set of explosions were like awesome. And at first I thought it was a bit excessive, and surely you don't need to like blow up the whole car park to kill one man. But of course, there's this great overhead shot of showing the burning cars making out the Punisher skull. That was very cool.
100%, which looks sick. And I actually forgot that scene was there as well. And I thought the same thing. Yeah. I was like, wow, I forgot about the overkill in this scene. And then when it zoomed out, I was like, oh, that's right. The flaming skull, because I'm pretty sure that was on like a poster, one of the original posters for the movie. Yeah. I was like, you ain't coming back. You ain't not coming back from that. Like he was shot, he was on fire, his legs were gone, the car was still going, and there was about 5 explosions around him. I'm like, you are dead.
Yeah. Toast.
Killed your best friend, who was gay, and you killed your wife.
Yeah. When you didn't need to at all. Were you slightly disappointed with the last scene? Did you want more gun action, or were you okay with it? I just feel like with the influence of the John Wick films these days, I know they are very excessive anyway, but because John the Punisher is a similar type character, he's just a gun dude, really. It was a bit disappointing. Did you have that, or?
I wasn't disappointed, but like if you reflect it onto watching like with John Wick, then you do see the giant bar between. Yeah, you do see the giant bar between the two, because you could very much take John Wick and slap him with a skull vest, and you could still write the same type of movie. But we're looking about 2004. I think he could have done a little bit more gun, probably just a little bit more, because we have that scene where he's fully stock loaded, he's doing the monologue, and he's fully loaded, very much like was the Arnie scene from Commando. He's like loading up everything, and it's like it's ready to go. But I wouldn't say it was a part where I was like it needed more. But if this movie came out now, then I'd be like, yeah, you need a lot more. Like John Wick has become the new standard.
Yeah, I think you're right, though. I think maybe I'm just taking it out of context a little bit. The fact that, this film did come out in 2004 and but I just feel like in terms of your escalation of action, like when you think of this film, for me, I don't think of like the final act. I think about like that massacre scene and which was definitely the best action scene for me. And I think my favorite part and my favorite scene / shot of the film was definitely the car chase stuff. And Frank on his motorbike.
His armored car will look sick.
Yeah. With his motorbike chasing in that chase as well. That's and right. I loved the fact that it felt very rough and intense, and the cameras are just so close to the vehicles as possible. I love the part where the bad guys are in this pickup truck and just ram Maria and the boys' truck and destroys the boat that they were towing. That was cool. Even when Maria's truck tumbles when they shoot her tire out. I love the fact that there's like multiple cameras capturing it, and you can see like the air piston that flips the car. And obviously in those days, I don't think they would be able to like delete that puff of air, No, but it still looked really cool.
It's definitely not rough. Actually, it was in 2004. It's very old school action. Nothing's clean cut. Nothing, like things are rough. There's multiple cameras on the one thing, and it's when you watch them, like everything just looks intense.
Oh yeah, well yeah, I really like that rough feel to it though. I just feel like it just feels like proper old school action filmmaking where you're not trying to be exactly precise. Like you feel like these motorbikes and these cars, these trucks, as Americans call them, they're going at full pelt. They feel really fast. The pace and brutality is still there in the chase too, where like Maria and her son are like running down the pier, and you think immediately, they're going to get run over. But I didn't think they would leave it as late as possible to cut away before they get run over. I was like, oh my God, very brutal, brutal stuff. What's your favorite scene or shot for you?
My favorite scene, I guess I would have to say, bro, my favorite scene is at the end when he does kill Howard. However, if we're talking like an iconic shot, is when he's in the bank.
Oh yeah,
and he's wearing the trench coat and he just shoots both the guys with the two guns either time, and you just got the perfect display of the Punisher logo, and you're just like, hell yeah, like, yes.
That's cool. That's the first time you see him in the Punisher gear, isn't it? So,
the proper gear, and like that's that's a money shot.
Oh yeah. Feels like he's the only hero in a black leather jacket that we're going to talk about today.
Yes. No. How did you think of Kevin Nash with bleach blonde hair attacking him in his apartment?
Yeah, that was kind of insane. I had that in screenplay, and I will definitely talk about that in a minute. But yeah, that was kind of surreal.
I know. I still forgot. As soon as I saw that, I was like, "That's right. That's Kevin Nash."
Yeah, and such a hilarious scene.
I know, and I also forgot Mystique. The was Mystique, which I'm pretty sure she would have had to shot this back to back with X-Men because this came out in 2004.
Yeah, mate, possibly. Yeah. So, directing score for me, I think,
honestly.
Yeah, I think this certainly the action is really good, but I think some of like the talky stuff is just not staged particularly well, and I feel like this is very much an action director and not, it just doesn't feel like tonally it just feels all over the place. So like as you say, like the scene, the action scene with Kevin Nash is very funny and weird, and yet like the opening is very serious and extremely brutal, and the end is very brutal, but kind of a lot of the stuff in in the middle just feels like an action comedy. So, and then you've got gangster stuff in there, and it just feels kind of weird. But certainly from an action standpoint, it's pretty good. But yeah, like I always prefer like your best action scenes to be at the start and at the end, especially at the end. And it just doesn't really achieve that, to be honest. And also, I just feel like with the Western tropes, like I love Westerns and I love the fact that they're using a lot of them, but it does feel a bit overly done and a bit on the nose. Yeah. So just tonally, it's just all over the shop. It's just from a directional point and even from like a writing point, which we'll get to, it goes even worse down that road of just being tonally all over the place. But yeah, so directing, I'll go like a 6.8. 6.6.
Yeah. You know what? No, I just remembered one more thing. No, it's a 6.6. Yeah, look, I do understand what you're saying. Like, it's the start and the finish marry up to each other very much. In the middle, it starts becoming a little bit lighthearted, and it adds a little bit more. Not saying it reminded itself, like it almost had to remind itself that this was a comic book movie.
Yes.
These early comic book movies, I think half the time, like, it's like, oh no, we're doing really close to material, and oh, that's right, I want to do this, and someone else wants to do this, and it's a bit of a mixed bag.
Yeah.
It doesn't, some of these early ones don't have that same mindset direction all the way through. Daredevil. Elektra, even.
Yeah.
In saying that, I'll go, which, this could be very much one of those stands. Like, I just double checked. So the director being Jonathan, his other movies is Armageddon, and also did Die Hard with a Vengeance. He wrote Die Hard with a Vengeance. So I'm like, oh yeah, that makes more sense. Out of 10.
Yeah, Jonathan Hensley.
Yeah, he also partially wrote. So yeah, that makes sense. Like, oh, that's right. I forget. He's a comic book hero. I'll give it a 7.
Straight 7.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, 7.1. I'll give it a 7.1. Okay. Don't worry, he's taught me not to do any solid numbers. Whatever you do, is don't do a solid number.
You can do a solid.
No. I'll do a 7 because you do have a character that in majority of the meat of him is the fact that he is. It's action, it's brutality. It has the vision for that. You do get it, but I do understand like that. The extra 3 points I'll take down, very similar to you on just that. Yeah, it's almost very like a piece of meat, thin slice piece of meat.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely just feels like the film isn't confident enough in trying to adapt this properly. They feel like they need to like accommodate this film for like Hollywood audiences of the noughties, and they got to have a lot more humor in there. And I don't think the humor really works too well with the rest of the style of the film. And yeah, and also just the way a lot of the talky stuff is staged, it's just not very well done at all. It just comes off like really melodramatic and really funny sometimes. So yeah, it's not great. But screenplay, the first half of the film is pretty good in terms of how like the pacing is done with how they reveal Frank Castle as the Punisher. Like, you don't get to spend much time with his family before they get killed, but like the brutal and long nature of how they get killed almost makes up for that. Also, I like the idea that like 5 years has gone by getting his strength back off screen. Like, I always love the little montage scene of a hero gearing up, in his garage and his car, like with the bulletproof things that come down. That was cool. And of course, it's like a black American muscle car like Blade.
Yeah.
And I love how they hide his full look during the sequence in the bank. I did love the cheesy Mexican standoff scene, as you said, Leigh, when you see him in full costume. That was very cool.
You're right. You're almost, the time you spend with his family being happy is shorter than you do see them running for their life and die.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think the film just about gets away with it when you get to that point in the film because of how brutal it is, because of how traumatic and how long that scene is. You can definitely feel, Frank Castle's pain and all that. By far the best sequence, as we've said. For me, anyway.
Of course. And you feel it's all justified. Everything he does, he justified. And it's the same thing with John Wick. It's like as soon as his puppy dies, I'm like, yep, straight up, I'll do the exact same thing. And you do feel that when they die, when he's on that pier and he's holding his family, and that's one of the iconic shots about with him in the comic books as well. Like it's everything that stems from that.
I feel like with John Wick though, like there's just kind of an escalation style with the scripts in that, because they killed his dog. It's just like, okay, I'm getting back to becoming a hitman now. I'm just going to get back into that world, and it just keeps going and killing more people and more people in those films. Whereas this, it feels more of a traditional like revenge thriller, revenge action thing in this film. That he has to do very specific things to like take down the mob bosses in John Travolta. Whereas in like John Wick, it just feels like it just escalates.
Yeah. How many guys can you kill?
Just from something very small, because there's more like myth to those films. They play on that more rather than like the traditional just taking down mob bosses.
It's very he's very methodical in everything he does. Like I'm taking everything from you. John Wick can very much be the fact that he's just shooting his way all the way to the top. Yeah. Just to get Viggo's son. But, Punisher messes up his entire life before he kills him.
So, tonally, this film takes a very weird, funny tone. Like, the first half is very serious and brutal. And when he becomes the Punisher, it still feels very serious, but with a few bits of, like, silliness with the action. Then when we get, like, the trio of Joan, Rebecca, Romjin, Bumpo, John Panetti, and Spacker Dave, Ben Foster, arrive as Frank's new neighbors, and there's a little scene where Dave and Bumpo fall through the door and land on each other as Frank's going back to his door, which is mildly funny. Again, it just feels very out of place. But then later there's a scene where like they trick Frank to have dinner with them, and tonally it just feels like a different film. There's a whole theme about trying to create new memories and forgetting your old ones, which I kind of like that, but I don't think they play on that enough. I don't think. Frank leaves, then decides to come back for dessert. But Kevin Nash punches through the door as the Russian, as this bright Where's Wally, type guy wearing a red and white hooped t-shirt. And it's kind of ironic as well because I literally went on a stag do a few weekends ago and we were all wearing Where's Wally t-shirts.
Oh, really?
Yeah. With literally the same t-shirt as Kevin Nash. And no one said, oh, you look like Kevin Nash. Like, well, I'm not that big.
Oh,
but,
that's rude. They should have.
Just all, Where's Wally? He's at the back. But you're like, what is he wearing? The action that follows is very brutal, but becomes a full-on action comedy.
Yeah.
And the film kind of subverts your expectations with Frank's like hidden weapons that he's got. Like he gets a grenade out and throws it through the door, and the Russian just like hits it back at Frank like he's playing baseball. Yeah, then when Frank gets out his like hidden revolver, Kevin Nash just crushes the barrel with a dumbbell like they're in a cartoon for some reason. Very funny, but very random. Like all the while, Dave and Bumpo are dancing like to classical music, a great sequence in the wrong film. It's just like, what is happening?
I know. And Kevin Nash, he just has a giant smile like the whole time when he's just doing this. I'm like, very sadistic. That's creepier.
Yeah. So did that feel out of place to you, like tonally? Or were you okay with it?
Oh, look, it was slightly light-hearted action. Yeah. Definitely gives that slight breather from everything that's happened at the very first. But this is what we're talking about is like something terribly, terribly horrible has happened. He's a serious character all the way up to this point. And then you're versing someone that you've 3 times bigger than you. You stab him and does nothing. He just smiles back to you more. It's almost getting attacked by a giant clown. Really,
yeah, and then it gets really kind of brutal again right at the end when Frank Castle finishes him off by throwing like the boiling hot pan over his face, and he's just got boils all over his face, and it's just like, whoa. Yeah. That's not like a funny action move like with all the other ones.
No, and we get to find out, also, as you said, how decked out his room is.
Yeah,
with sliding doors and compartments.
But it's kind of interesting, though, and kind of cool in a weird way, the fact that the film is subverting all that. The fact that it's not useful to him. He's kind of failing with that stuff. Kevin Nash is like not outsmarting, but just being more brutal than he is with that. And it kind of counteracts all that. But yeah, this scene in particular just feels like studio intervention with the fact that they're going away from the comics a little bit. Like they're going away from this serious, brutal tone, even though it still feels brutal. But they're adding comedy in there. They're like, okay, this is a film that we need to sell. We need to put more humor in here. Let's do it with this scene, and it just becomes tonally all over the place from that point. It's just like, what the hell?
Hey, you just gotta have a laugh. Look, it's comic book wise. What Kevin Nash is wearing is completely accurate. However, I'm like, you're the brightest thing in this film. Like, you're brighter than the kid.
Yeah, you're brighter than Puerto Rico itself.
Yeah, you are. Like, and the color palette for the film is grey and dark tones, and then you get this bright, bleach blonde hair, tall MF in a weird scene.
And also, like, the problem I had with this film is just, it feels very kind of episodic a little bit. You have this random kind of Western-esque scene, which I quite liked in terms of the acting, which I'll talk about later. But like, this guy comes in with a guitar case in this diner where Frank Castle is just having coffee. And it's literally, if you just got them in cowboy hats and it's in the middle of the desert, you're like, this is a Western.
Yeah, straight up.
But I don't think there's any like bits of dialogue from John Travolta where he says, send this guy to try and kill him. He just turns up.
No, yeah.
And then like moments later, he tries to ram him in his car, which is quite a good sequence, and then he kills him. Kind of a really cool line where it's just like, you're such a dumbass or something. You brought a knife to a gunfight and the knife kind of just like flies into his neck. That was cool. But then there's no mention of this guy at all. No. It's so random.
No, it's not mentioned later. It's like, oh, you killed you killed him as well. Like, no.
Yeah. And even with like the whole, because there's little bits throughout the film where Frank Castle, the Punisher, is messing around with Lydia's car, John Travolta's wife, and you're like, okay, what's going on here? And obviously he's taking pictures of Quinn, John Travolta's best friend, his right-hand man, and you're like, okay, he's framing him at some point. But again, it like when like John Travolta finds these two things out, both scenes with Quinn and his wife, they're both smack together, and it just feels again like episodic. Like, okay, this is all of John Travolta's scenes to shine now, and I feel like the Punisher kind of just goes missing a little bit.
Definitely takes a little bit of back seat.
Yeah,
through all that, and then pops up.
It just didn't feel particularly organic. It just all felt kind of not rushed, but just, okay, we need to like tie all these threads up now, all in two big scenes, and they just felt a bit too long. And it just felt like, okay, this is the point in the film where we need to tie all this stuff up before we get to the final act.
Before we get all the trucks of explosion coming in.
Yeah,
we need to get this wrapped up. I can understand that. It does. He definitely, the Punisher does disappear. It takes backseat for just that little bit between all those scenes as everything, falls into place for John Travolta's character.
Because I think the film, like, I kind of like all that stuff. The fact that, you know, the Punisher is framing, you know, his wife and his best friend, but I just don't think the film is sophisticated enough to really pull that off properly in those last two scenes, because you've just got this, again, coming back to that word again, tonally, it feels like the film is just all over the place, because you've got all the comedy stuff with his new neighbors, and that takes a lot of the focus, and then you've got this kind of real, like, thrillery stuff with the framing, and both kind of elements just counteract each other, and then it just feels very tacked on, those last scenes with Travolta killing his wife and his best friend. So yeah,
it's very like tone up and down, up and down, down.
Oh yeah,
then back to the same tone. But no, I can definitely see that as well. Yeah, one moment you're like, oh, everything's all good, and I'm like, oh, that's right, you framed your wife. So you framed your best friend, and your wife is, you think your wife's cheating on you.
Yeah,
like it's like okay, back to the serious part, back to that tone.
Also, I think the dialogue in this film is sometimes absolutely dreadful. Like, not from the Punisher though, from a lot of the side characters. The Punisher's dialogue's actually quite fun, but there's a character, Eddie Jamieson, Mickey Duca.
Yeah. I thought he was going to die.
I felt so sorry for that guy, because a lot of the lines that came out of his mouth is so bad. I felt like, oh, he must have been like, do I have to say these lines?
Don't shoot me in my face. Don't disappoint my mother.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, like, you see kind of the comedy stuff come through to begin with that kind of torture scene with the Punisher and the lollipop and the torch, you know. That was kind of funny to begin with, but then I think, again, it just goes on too long, and just like, okay, it's not that funny.
Yeah. It's like, there was a chuckle, but hang on, pull back a bit.
But yeah, a lot of the dialogue between, like, John Travolta and Laura Haring, is, like, really bad as well sometimes. Did you get that with some of the dialogue? You're like, oh.
It was only a couple of moments where I was just a bit like, I'm like, okay, this seems to be like a cheap paycheck day, especially when you're watching like Punisher. He's in a long monologue, and you're like, okay, let's build, but it's like just, I don't know, placeholders, if you will, like words just fill in the gaps. Nothing really like emotion. Let's
get onto lines then, funny and interesting lines. But let's not focus on the bad ones. There are some good ones.
There's plenty of good ones.
Like when, like at the end of the Puerto Rico scene, this guy asks Frank Castle, "Go with God. God's going to sit this one out." I thought it was pretty cool. The opening one from Ben Foster, where he's playing this video game, and he's like, "Die, die, die! I'm the most amazing man in the world." Which I thought was hilarious, actually.
No, it was good. I did like Punisher's monologue. It's like, no, this is not vengeance. This is punishment. You're like, or the bank scene. Good business, murder. Does the Saints pay you, or is it like a group discount?
Yeah, he says, good business, murder. Does Saint pay you for each one, or does he get you a group rate discount?
Yeah.
Which I thought was so good. I'm fine. He's not. Then he just falls over.
Yeah.
Again, like, why are we having a comedy fall here? Come on.
You just do the was it the Wilhelm scream, and it would just be perfect.
Yeah. But I think my favorite one, which made me laugh out loud. I literally had to pause the film because it was so funny. Was when, because like Frank Castle is framing Quinn, and he's told him to meet at this certain place, and he's in this store, this clothing store, and the shop assistant comes up to Quinn. And he says, "Need help with some underpants, sir? Go fuck yourself."
Hey, that was a bit of go fuck yourself.
Oh, that was so funny. Yeah, I just thought that was hilarious.
No, don't. Don't help. Don't help him.
Have you got a favorite for you?
Probably, I would say no. No, there's no vengeance. There's punishment. I know. I just like to me. Then like that's the character.
Yeah.
Like that's the action. That's the character. That's the money line, and that's the whole character wrapped in one.
Yeah, I quite like that little sequence where, again, he's kind of, I love a gearing up scene, as I said. You know, he's got that, because that line's a voiceover as he's gearing up. And it felt very epic in that moment, like really epic. And you feel like you're going to get a really great action scene at the end. And as I said, I don't think it fully delivers, especially after that kind of little, great epic scene with that. But that scene as a, if you just take that scene, that's a great one.
Either that or where he's on Howard. I'd say either with Howard, he's like, oh, you killed my son. Listens, here's the explosion. Make that two.
Yeah.
You're like, oh.
Screenplay score. Oh dear.
Here we go.
Yeah. The thing is all over the place. Some of the dialogue is really bad, but some of the dialogue is very good. Very cheesy, yes, but I do like a bit of cheese with my dialogue. Not actual cheese, don't like cheese. But yeah, the film, it got off to the opening scene with the drug deal wasn't great, but like after that, it got off to a great start. But then it just, it's not very good. Tone, as I keep saying, I know I'm repeating myself a lot, but I can't help it. With this film, it's tonally all over the shop, and I just feel like, with John Travolta's character, his dialogue, his character just needed a big rewrite, because he just didn't feel particularly threatening at all, especially with like I think it's his Cuban or Mexican money laundering friends. Like those scenes just fell flat as well. I just felt like the Punisher was on an easy ride. Like I just didn't feel like his task to take these guys down was that difficult. Really, it felt easy for him.
It's just another day.
Yeah, exactly. It that's the thing. It just felt like a day in the life for the Punisher in this film. He's just capturing it. It's just a great day's work for him, and it just didn't feel hard. Like there's just not much suspense and thrill, and again, I just didn't feel like he was in any real danger. Yes, you have like that scene with Kevin Nash, and he gets really beat up with that. But again, like tonally, it's. I don't understand why they're going down the real comedy route with that, and it's just if they just played it real straight down the nose, then it would have felt more dangerous. Yeah, so I'll go. And again, it just feels like, with the framing stuff just doesn't feel right, and the framing stuff and the comedy scenes are just counteracting each other. They don't really fully shine through, and it's a big old mess. So
a big old mess.
I'll go 4.5.
Whoa. What is your lowest? Do you know off the top of your head your lowest screenplay score you've ever given a film?
Maybe this one.
Okay. All right.
I'm sorry.
New record. Oh look, this is more of a. This is more of an action film on this. I won't be as brutal as a 4. I'll at least give this a 5.5.
Okay. Right. Moving on to acting. I do wonder whether Laura Haring thought she was acting in a different film, because her performance was quite ridiculous at times. It's like she's in a melodrama from the 40s, not a comic book action movie. Like her first proper scene is in John Travolta's car, and she kind of lifts her veil up with this like massive hat on and just says, his family. His whole family. Implying she wants Frank's whole family killed. Like her eyes are not cold at all. It's like her dog has just died or something. Then later, after this party, John Travolta gives her these diamond earrings, and she says, I asked you to avenge our son, and you did. Then she just randomly takes her dress off to reveal this nightie, and John Travolta comes for her, and she looks scared that he's going to like eat her or something. Very weird, not sexy acting at all from her, just very funny.
No. Definitely not our True Lives vibes.
No.
No. I feel like Thomas Jane, I feel like his acting, and being the lead as well, he was the best.
Oh, yeah.
But I agree with probably John Travolta being the biggest star, for this film, like being, at the head, being the biggest star, being the box of a straw of the guy coming in. I thought that Thomas Jane just outshined him in every scene. Like it didn't.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, if we compare it to like Face Off, I'm like, that was really good. I'm like, but this seems like, I don't know, was this just a paycheck day? Or was this paycheck day because what was that really shitty movie that absolutely bombed that he was in? Battle Earth or something like that.
Oh
yeah. Was this trying to recoup your losses from that?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, almost destroyed his career. Yeah,
it did, and I'm pretty sure that's also if you look up 10, 20 worst films in the past decade, that's in all of them.
Yeah, to be fair, like Thomas Jane is one of my favorite performances. Not my favorite, but like definitely one of my favorite performances. I mean, I think it would be unfair to just say he's just playing Thomas Jane, but like there's definitely, you can feel the pain on his face that he has lost his family. I'll give him that. And he does feel like a badass, like an action hero. He definitely fits the bill with that for sure. And he does feel dangerous. It just, I guess that's the film's issue as well. He just makes everything look so fucking easy. Like, certainly when he is the Punisher, he's just like, yeah, I'm the fucking Punisher. And,
it's just another day for me.
He's just taking everyone out. And when he gets a scratch, he doesn't really feel it, that kind of thing like Arnie used to do in the 80s and stuff. So again, as I mentioned earlier, there's that kind of that random Western scene where this guy comes in, Mark Colley, who plays Harry Heck, and he just comes into this diner like it's a Western, and Frank Castle is just looking at him. Thomas Jane is just looking at him, drinking his coffee, and the whole time, and he sings him a song, this guy. But the whole time they are locked eyes. They look at each other the whole time, and I kind of like that idea. And, that scene is quite good in terms of the acting alone, really. The acting makes that scene. It just, again, I just would have liked if there just was a bit more context of what's happening here. But
just a little bit.
The scene as a whole, if you just separate it out, it's like it's really good, but yeah.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
But, probably someone is a bit probably you're right, like he's a badass action hero, and nothing much phases him. Like the most emotion you'll get from him is obviously on the pier with his family. But even in the comedy scenes, like still fine.
Yeah, but to be fair, I'm just like, I'm not sure what he looks confused sometimes. It's like, what film am I in now? Do I still have to? I'll just go for just stoic and steely as I've been doing for the whole rest of the film. So I think that's the only way I can get out of this respectfully. Yeah. But yeah, you're right though. In the Puerto Rico scene, he's amazing. Just you can see the anguish and the raw emotions on his face. Yeah, he's incredible in those scenes in Puerto Rico for sure. Like, and the panic before the action starts as well. That's all really good. I mean, he doesn't do anything particularly special, when he is the Punisher. He's just, servicing the character. And
nothing like, wow, and amazing. But when you stack everybody else around him, you're like, you really notice it.
Yeah. Ben Foster is amazing in this film, I think. He's always brilliant in everything. Here he brings this great, like, nerdy humor right from the off when he's playing this video game and has amazing chemistry with his roommate John Panetti Bumpo. Like the torture scene, he's especially great where he's very squirmy and he's screeching for his life when Quinn is pulling his piercings out, you know.
Oh, that scene always gets me when I watch it.
Yeah.
Like, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh.
Then he brings, great heart when his face is all bloody and says to Frank that he said nothing because we're family. And, you can definitely feel the pain through his voice there and the heart
We're
coming through.
family.
Yeah. Yeah, great character actor for me. Did you enjoy Ben Foster in this?
I thought it was good. I even though it was the comic bits, just the little clan of the three of them, I thought was good. I think they all played off each other pretty well. But yes, every time I do watch that scene when he gets those ripped out, I'm a bit...
Yeah, he is so convincing in that. Really, really good.
Yeah. No, I like the little clan. I'm glad that none of them died.
Oh, yeah, definitely. John Travolta, I think, again, I feel like he's trying very hard not to go into this melodramatic mode that Laura Harring is going into. He's really trying to restrain himself and just like, I'm not sure you're supposed to be acting like this, but I'm going to try and bring myself to a particular level so I don't look ridiculous, but then just make the scenes work to a certain extent. Yeah. But like towards the end when things start to go wrong and you get like the fierce John Travolta, he's really good when he's like that. And you're just like, yeah, he's finally in this film now. Yeah. He's in the right tone.
Cameras are rolling.
Yeah. So I definitely preferred John Travolta in those last few scenes
than the rest.
Yeah, definitely.
No, I agree. And like, I'm not saying it's totally bad. It's just one of those things where I've seen you do better.
Yeah. Favorite performance for you?
I had to be Thomas Jane. Thomas Jane would be my favorite, and it's one of those things where like it's a darn shame that he didn't get a Punisher 2 or 3 out of it. He did so good in this role. I think the only next thing he did, I think it was a short film where he played the Punisher in this. But it's one of those things where it would be great to see him. Or if he popped in Deadpool and Wolverine, he would have been a highlight.
Because obviously you see the Russian turn up in Deadpool and Wolverine, which obviously a different actor, but
not Kevin
same
Nash,
T-shirt.
But he rocks up at least.
Yeah, that was fun. I'm going for Ben Foster as my favorite performance. I just felt he was just really convincing and had a little bit of range compared to everyone else.
You're the MVP here.
Yeah. So acting score for me. Do I venture into the 6s or 7s?
Yeah. Well, his last one was a 4, so.
Oh, dearie me. Because like Laura Harring is like really bad. Thomas Jane is fine. Like a lot of the actors are fine. John Travolta looks confused about what film he's in towards the end. He's like, "Oh yeah, okay, I'm a gangster now. I can get mad.
I'm on now."
But yeah, but Ben Foster is very good. So I will go like a straight 6.
All right.
Being generous, to be honest.
Yeah, I was waiting for that. I was waiting for you to be like, "Yeah, that was generously." The acting's really not why you come here for these. No. I'll give it I'll give it a 5.8.
Okay.
like it's not like I'm waiting for an RDJ performance going into this.
Right, let's add up the scores then for The Punisher.
The Day in Life of the Punisher, just fine.
Yeah, that should be the tagline.
Yeah,
all in a day's work.
Yeah, just a normal Tuesday.
Yeah,
you should. I don't know if you do have time. They did semi-make a sequel to this. It was called Punisher Warzone.
Yeah,
and Marvel used to have this thing called Marvel Knights, where they would make more brutal Marvel films, and they did make. And the Punisher Warzone is a lot more to the comics, and is definitely pushes more of the R rating.
Yeah. He is a very fascinating character, I think. It's just really interesting kind of always following a character when they've, lost everything and how they react to that. And certainly I loved John Bernthal's depiction of the character in the, Daredevil TV shows. I'm very much looking forward to him coming back in Daredevil Born Again. So see how they work him into the story.
Yeah, I can't wait. And it's all going to be MCU. Yeah. Oh, MCU now.
Mm-hmm. So the Punisher gets not a great score of 35.4.
Yeah, that seems justified.
Yeah. That's it for part 1. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Check out part 2 to see who wins. But don't stop there. Get involved and tell me what your favourite films are relating to the episode. Send us a DM or comment on Instagram and TikTok at Film vs. Film Podcast. For X at FVF_podcast. Plus, we are now on YouTube, so hit that like button and comment there. If you do, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Remember, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Pod signing off.